Our guest is Mr. Derenberger. Mr. Derenberger has a very interesting story to tell us this evening. I will give you a thumbnail sketch to begin with. Whether or not you believe in unidentified flying objects or not is not the point. Whether you believe in what you hear or see on this program is not the point. We are here to talk to a man that allegedly did make contact with such an object within the Parkersburg area last evening, November the 2nd, 1966, at approximately 7:25 p.m.
Imagine for a moment that you knew a secret that could redefine humanity's perception of the universe altogether. Would you keep it hidden? Or would you share it with the world, knowing that it could draw unwanted attention, a blemished reputation, and disbelieving insults from strangers and neighbors alike? After a while, you would surely begin to doubt yourself, but eventually, perhaps you would begin to doubt your own doubts as well. Because what if you knew deep down that no matter how crazy you sounded, even to your own ears, that you believed every word you had uttered? And what if you knew that no matter how much you wished you could not deny it? It would be a daunting position, and it was the very position that Woodrow Derenberger found himself in the night he met Mr. Cold, the smiling man of West Virginia.
It didn't land, it stayed off the ground.
Yes, it was approximately 8 to 10 inches off of the ground. And as soon as it came to a stop, immediately there was a door on the side facing me open, and this man stepped out. And he started walking immediately right to the right-hand side of my truck.
I have no intention of telling you whether or not to believe Mr. Derenberger's intentions or his narrative. It is speculated by some that he sought fame. Some might question the soundness of his mental health. Others might argue that it was merely a practical joke gone too far. But if Indrid Cold was fictional, Derenberger's commitment to the farce would have been unnerving. He never refuted his claims regarding the unnatural encounter, and though it might seem surprising, the legitimacy of Indrid Cold's existence bears little relevance to the topic at hand. For this is not a speculative analysis of who Mr. Cold might be or where he might have come from. It is the story of how Mr. Cold, real or not, ruined Woodrow Derenberger's life. It began when Mr. Derenberger reported his experience to the world. The sewing machine salesman had been on his way home from a business trip. He explained that after seeing what he believed to be a UFO, he stopped, only to see a man step out of the vehicle. Or at least something that looked like a man. Mr. Indrid Cold stopped Derenberger and told him to roll down the windows so they could speak. The conversation was allegedly a pleasant enough one, with Mr. Cold asking questions such as what the city lights in the distance were and what the name for a city was on Earth. He then informed Mr. Derenberger to not be alarmed as he meant him no harm. The oddity in the conversation was that while the two spoke, Mr. Cold never spoke aloud. Mr. Derenberger understood everything telepathically, but Mr. Cold's face remained locked in a grin, never uttering a word.
I know personally that Mr. Derenberger was scared because I talked to him a short time after this happened by telephone last night. What did your wife think when you told her about this episode?
Well, my wife was, she took it pretty calmly, but it kind of made her nervous. She worried today before I started back to work. She thought the same thing could happen again, and she believes that what I told her, and she's pretty upset herself about it.
After reporting the encounter to the police and the media, the world took notice. Some people came forward with reports of seeing Derenberger speaking to Cold. Others reported seeing UFOs, and some even reported their own encounters with Cold. Eventually, talk died down, but unfortunately, that isn't where the story ends. Mr. Cold returned. More than once. Mr. Derenberger, as well as his family, reported visitations from the Grinning man. Mr. Derenberger even wrote a book explaining the events, but unfortunately the public response evolved from a sensational news story to a heavy case of ridicule. Some stalked the Derenberger home in hopes of seeing Mr. Cold. The attention became unbearable, yet Mr. Derenberger never refuted his claims. His doctor even declared him mentally sound. Whether the story was real or not, the effects of it being told were very real. The Derenbergers were losing friends and employment due to their notoriety. Eventually, Mrs. Derenberger could take it no longer and divorced her husband. In spite of losing everything, Mr. Derenberger never denied his stories. Perhaps he was delusional. Perhaps it was a practical joke gone too far. Or perhaps he really did meet someone or something that night in West Virginia.
But just before he started, he said, Mr. Derenberger, we will be seeing you again.
You believe he will?
Well, I did believe it, but now I don't know how to answer that honestly, because I'm afraid he will, and I don't want him to. But I have a feeling that he will.